Shalom, shalom. The title of this lesson is The Church of Sardis, the name that lives but spiritually dead. This lesson is circled around Revelations, the 3rd chapter, verse 1 and 3. We're going to even add some history. Anything that I say, regardless if it's history, time, or scriptures, look them up, right? But I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. And I want to give a double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well through the Spirit. And a mighty shalom to the hopeful elect, scattered four corners of the earth in the same Spirit, Lord willing that they continue in sound doctrine. And shalom to the Aquav, the sisters of this faith and this truth. Lord willing, you continue to pursue your lot, which is being a loving and silent and virtuous wife. And Lord willing, Yahweh Shai has mercy on the other brothers and sisters that's not in the faith. Okay? So when I'm speaking on history, I'll probably hop back onto that image. This is a screen record, so again, look up the information that you hear me say and even look up the precept, even if you see them on the screen. So, message to Sardis, Revelations, the 3rd chapter, verse 1. And unto the angel of the church of Sardis, which the angel is really meaning messenger or representative, and that's talking about a leader, right, of that church. In Sardis write, these things saith he that have the 7 spirits of the Most High and the 7 stars. I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain, that are ready to die. For I have not found thy works perfect before the Most High. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Thou hast a few names even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. He that have an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Right? So when we deal with the historical background of Sardis, Sardis was one of the oldest and richest cities of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. Okay? It was the capital of the ancient kingdom of Lydia, right? Or Lydia. Known for its wealth, the first place to mint gold and silver coins under King Carius, the 6th century BC. The city was built on a high hill thought to be impregnable, but twice in history, once by Cyrus the Great, 549 BC, and again by Antiochus the Great, 214 BC. It was captured because the guards fell asleep and failed to watch. Historical symbolism. The same lack of watchfulness that led to Sardis' downfall in history mirrors the spiritual sleepiness Yahushai rebukes in Revelation, the 3rd chapter. And even though in the 3rd chapter, you actually have multiple different churches he speaks to in the 3rd chapter, but from verse 1 to 6, this is directed towards Sardis. So when Yahushai says, be watchful, he's directly referencing Sardis' history. They were famous for being caught off guard, both physically and spiritually, right? So now I'm going to deal with certain points. So when you go to the 1st chapter, we're going to deal with thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. They had a reputation among men for being alive, active, religious, respected, but in the spirit they were dead. So just because I'm going to be hopping back to certain points in that chapter, let's go to Romans, the 8th chapter, in verse 6. Let's start at 5. It says, "For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Right? So again, if we're dead, we're carnally minded, especially if we're looking at it in a spiritual sense, like Revelations 11:8. Right? Let's get 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, in verse 5. "Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away." Right? Denying. If you deny it, or you not confessing, Yahweh Shai is going to deny you to the angels and to the Most High. Symbolic to what it says, where is that? Verse 5 at the bottom, where it says, "But I will confess his name before the Father." Basically, those that overcome. But when we go into the gospel, if you deny the Son, Yahweh Shai is going to deny you to the Father. So you can appear righteous outwardly, attending feast days, wearing fringes, calling on the names, but still be spiritually lifeless if you don't have the Spirit of Yahweh Shai working in you, right? And we seen, I did a lesson on Judas. Judas was outwardly following Yahweh Shai, but then you even have Paul speaking on a real Jew is one inwardly, right? That's Romans chapter 2. Read it, verse 28 and 29. It says, "For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly. His circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of the Most High." Okay? So a Jew or an Israelite is one inwardly, not one outwardly. Plain and simple. Okay? So we're going to deal with the point in verse 2. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain. Right? So even though Sardis was nearly spiritually dead, a few sparks of life remained, and Yahushua urged him to strengthen what was left, right? Because what it say? That are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before the Most High, right? So let's go to 1 Peter's, the 5th chapter, in verse 8. "Be sober, be vigilant," because that's you being watchful, "because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour." So when we look at these churches, just for anybody to say, even though they're in Asia Minor, right? You have to understand it's Israelites that are in these churches, right? Yes, it's mixed up, it's other nations that's around too, but it's Israelites. These letters, these messages, these what Yahweh Shai is saying through the Spirit to John is for the Israelites, right? So let's go to Luke, the 12th chapter. Excuse me, y'all. I am under the weather. So Salaki. Let me just blow my nose real quick. Salaki. Salaki, family. So this is Luke, the 12th chapter, verse 35 to 37. "Let your loins be girded about, right, with the truth, and your lights burning, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself, and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them." This is why when we look at, the stars, those angels or representatives of the church, those leaders, right? It is different levels we supposed to, of course, present ourselves as a light, so that while we're teaching, correcting, bringing forth the doctrine, those that the Lord sees fit that believe, like Paul in 1 Timothy 1 and 12, he enabled him in the ministry because he found him faithful. How? Because the Lord he sees the heart. So just like us now, we come in His truth is because we have been enabled and our minds cleave to what is actually being said, those that actually believe. So we must constantly be on guard spiritually, examine ourselves daily. 2 Corinthians the 13th chapter, because we see that, Sardis, the church Sardis has a history report on, they be caught sleep or unaware. When you look at Romans 13, wake up out of sleep, for now our salvation is nearer than we believe. Okay? So Salaki, this is 2 Corinthians 13 and 5. It says, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves, right? Test your own selves to see if you're in the faith. Know ye not your own selves how that Yahushua Mashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. So repenting, praying, fasting, and keeping the spirit alive before it flickers out, right? And we know when we go back to, no, even in the 3rd chapter, when it goes into the church of Lesodiah, right, where he said, "Don't be lukewarm. It's either you cold or you hot." Okay, so if you want your candle to be blown out, you want to constantly be on fire. So when we look at the 3rd verse where it says, "If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief," right? Because we're trying to deal with the points, right, that I chose to choose to stick to, right? So Lowell is edifying. Brothers can actually do another lesson on this. You can, hit other points that I didn't hit. But if therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief. So Yahushua warns that judgment will come unexpectedly for the unwatchful, right? And of course, if you've been watching lessons, you'll understand. We know that Yahushua is going to come like a thief in the night. That's why you always say, watch and pray, watch, be aware. So Matthew 24, verse 42 to 42 to 44. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doeth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not the Son of Man cometh. Right? You want to always be watchful, always be aware, right? Always be aware, like how people do with their house. They put the little cameras so that they can watch who's walking in front of their house, who's coming up, right? Just to symbolically to be prepared. But for Yahweh Shai, we want to be spiritually and mentally prepared, so that physically, right, with our faith and believing in Yahweh Shai, we're going to be moved physically. But it's all a spiritual thing, right? You have to be spiritually alert. So let's go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 2 to 6. It says, "For yourselves know perfectly that the day of Yahweh Shai so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day shall overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light, and the children of the day. Ye are not of the night, nor of darkness." So just like dealing with the church of Sardis, we get to look at ourselves now in this day where we want to be alert, because eventually your rulers are going to say peace and safety, but destruction is going to come. And look at how society is moving the way it is now. If you're not alert now, off of, especially you see the food stamps, right? Work situation. There's a lot of people saying it's hard to get a job. Then you get a job, like the pay is not adding up, right? There's a whole lot of things that you can look at that makes you alert. That, you know what, I got to be more alert, right? Look what they doing with the food, right? They started to mix pork with beef, like even though they already doing it, but to make more money and to stretch certain things, they're trying to mix. Like one elder said, you could be buying lamb and it could be mixed in with rabbit, you know? So you have to be vigilant. You have to be watchful. You have to be alert. Let alone for your faith be alert. The charagma is coming, that MOTB, that prick. You have to be alert, you know? So the elect are those who stay spiritually alert, watching the times, discerning prophecy, and watching in righteousness daily. Because in 2nd Esdras 9, he says, measure out the time, right? And we know, I believe, 2nd Esdras 4, you know, the time is fit. It's already set. And this beast is not going to rule over past the time that the time the Lord set for them to rule. And the things that's unfolding now, it's not about to be better in this world. It's about to be worse for the coming of Hamashiach Yahushai. So let's go into the 4th verse to this point where it says, thou hast a few names even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, right? When we look at Matthew 22, that garment is spiritual, which goes into that understanding, right? Wisdom, knowledge, understanding. It goes into the understanding. You know, if you understand, you got that spiritual garment on. But if you don't, guess what? Your garment has spots on it, right? Let's go to Isaiah 1 and 9. So it's, thou has a few names even in Sardis. Let's go to Isaiah 1 and 9. Except Yahweh Shemashai of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like Gomorrah, right? The Lord is doing the same thing that he did in the time of Noah or the time of Lot, right? Those were learning points for us. Even though they actually happened, it's still a learning point because everybody's not going to get saved, right? Wherever your heart is, that's where your treasure at. So those that truly want to get saved, they have a delight for this truth. They have a delight to pleasing the Lord, mortifying the flesh, renewing themselves daily, right? Purging out the unleavened, right? This is 2nd Esdras, the 8th chapter. And I'll start at verse 1. It says, and he answered me, saying, the Most High have made this world for many, but the world to come for few. I will tell thee of similitude, something that's similar, right? Esdras, as when thou as the earth, it shall say unto thee that it giveth much mold whereof earthen vessels are made, but little dust that gold cometh of. Even so is the course of this present world. There be many created, but few shall be saved. The Lord is going to redo it again. What they call it? History barely repeats itself. That was a learning point for us. Let's go back to the point, Romans 11 and 5. It says, even so, then, at this present time, also there is a remnant, right? Those that are remaining according to the election. That word election goes into the word divine selection of grace, right? That favor. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. Why? Because it's really not of works, because the elect is predestined. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. Then what did Israel have not obtained that which they seek it for? But the election, right? The divine selection have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Salaki again. So when we look at all the 7 churches, regardless what's being said to them, like even though it's important, but what's being said to them in truth, Those that believe is going to cleave. Just like when we look at believers now. We were in a dead state because Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians 2, before Yahushua comes, it has to be a falling away. And then after that falling away is fulfilled, then they come back into this light and this truth. And the son of perdition has to be revealed. He has to be uncovered. Because if it's a falling away, how can a man of sin be revealed if it's a falling away? None of us know who he is. So everybody got this truth. At the time, Paul, they teaching it. And then Paul, through the Spirit in Thessalonians, the Lord had told him it's going to be a falling away before, before I come. Oh, dang. So we about to lose everything. You're going to lose the whole truth. You're going to lose who you are, right? But that's why when we see in Baruch 2, in the land of our captivities, we shall remember who we are. How? Because the breath of life, the Lord is going to send down back on the earth through the Spirit. And it's going to only dwell in those that he find faithful in the heart. He's going to enable them just like he did Paul. So when we look at these churches, in the time we in now, those that believe wherever you at, right, however low, however high you is, if you are of the elect, is going to draw you to this truth like some of us is drawn to this truth now. But then you have some, like when we look at the apostles, they did miracles. Some of y'all are going to come back in this faith just by seeing miracles. Like he told Thomas, what about those that believe that didn't see? There's going to be some that believe because of the miracles. There's going to be some that believe because faith come by hearing the word. They heard the word and they got it right then while everything was moving. The more stuff get chaotic, the Lord is increasing that Rakah Kodash in the men of the Lord. Do you get it? Okay. So verse 8, it says, according as it is written, the Most High have given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. And we read a little bit in a point that I have in history when in this history, where did it say it at? Historical symbolism, the lack of watchfulness that led to Sardis' downfall in history mirrors the spiritual sleepiness Yahushua rebuked in Revelations 3. When you even go to Revelations 13, which is really to all Israel, Romans 13:11, in that now, in that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep, for now is our salvation there that we believe. It is time to wake up. We see Romans 11:8, right? They have that spirit of slumber, okay? But it's time to wake up, and only those that believe, right, are going to be drawn, right? So the Most High always has a remnant, right? Those that remain, right, in this faith, or those that's going to come back in the faith, which is all synonymous to the elect being predestined. A small group who remain sincere, undefiled, even 144,000 going into Revelations, the 14th chapter. They wasn't defiled by any woman, really speaking about doctrine, wine, and humble even when the rest grow cold and corrupted. That goes with the rest of when we speaking to the church of Laodicea, right? Lord willing, I'm pronouncing it correctly, right? There's some that you have people that want to be cold, some that want to be hot. And he said, hey, it's either you want to be cold or hot. Don't have one foot in, one foot out, because I'm going to spew you out. And you got some that feel, oh, I'm good, I'm okay, but they're really miserable, right? Lord willing, I'll save that church for another lesson. So now, let's go back and let's read this point, and let's read it to 5. It says, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Now, it's a point that I'm thinking of. I think it's Daniel, the 12th chapter, right? Because it says, They shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. Only those that are worthy are going to have that white garment. It is going to be only those that actually overcome. So Daniel 12 in verse 10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand, right? Because it was already set, and they're already being uh, given that quickening spirit, which made them alive. Now, what are they doing? They're seeking this truth, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Romans, the 10th chapter, verse 14 to 17, right? Somebody had to teach them, right? And it is from every brother that got in this thing, they had a teacher in front of them. So when you look at Revelations, right, and we look at these angels are messengers, representative, right? And it's just synonymous with the leaders, right? Apostles, right? Elders, bishops, leaders of the church. It is just the same reflection as what's going on in today. Brothers is teaching. You have leaders, you have elders, apostles, right? It's prophets in this thing, right? And they're edifying the sheep, right? Some brothers that don't teach, right? Well, women and children, and they even teaching men that are teachers so that they can be even sharper, right? When you look at Habakkuk, they run with the correct message, okay? So, white garments represents purity, righteousness, and victory. Let's go to Revelations, the 19th chapter. Verse 8. Sorry, 7. It says, let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife had made herself ready, which is speaking about the nation of Israel. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. Come on, and those saints is the Israelites. And if anyone that's truly watching, go read Psalms 51 verse 5 and then read Psalms 148 verse 14. The Israelites are the saints, which is really the elect. Because when you read Psalms 51 and 5, it says though the saints is those that made a sacrifice. Now in the ancient world, it's a physical sacrifice. Romans chapter 12 verse 1, it's a spiritual sacrifice. Right? Let me actually show, because this is a spiritual house. And those that's of the spiritual house is being a reflection of that righteousness. This is 1 Peter 2 and 5. It says, ye also are lively stones, are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices, acceptable to the Most High by Yahweh Shai Mashiach. So if we out here seeing men laying themselves down for the elect's sake, right, teaching, right, they're making themselves a public spectacle, right, a public show, right, to feed the sheep, regardless if they look like fools. That's one of the main examples of laying yourself down like a living sacrifice, right? You taking this truth full storm by going out teaching his word, let alone, right, what we do unto others, right? Building brothers up, sharpen them up, right? We doing these sit down lessons on social media, which really makes a target for us. It doesn't matter how secretive a brother is, you are making a target for yourself each video, because you're not on a platform you made. You're on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok. That platform is owned by millionaires. Billionaires is watching it, right? So you're already marked. You're already seen, right? And the Lord is making us what? A spectacle, a public show for Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, the angels and man, because we're trying to plant those seeds before the Lord closed those breaches. This Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter, in verse 8. It says, okay. It says, let thy garment be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment, right? Don't let it lack that understanding, that wisdom, that knowledge, right? And hey, even if you lack, pursue. If you lack, hey, anybody that lack wisdom, what should we do? calling Yahweh Shema Shai, James 1 and 5. You know? Like I might feel a little weak now because I'm under the weather. It's hard for me to even function doing this and then working, body sensitive, right? I gotta call in Yahweh Shema Shai just to give me strength to actually do a lesson. Which some people would say, hey, you put too much stress on yourself. But guess what? I just worked. You know, if I'm able to force myself to go work for some money to make sure a bread is in the pocket to pay for this, make sure that they could go get some food, right? I can't do that for the Lord. I can't even go even harder. That's the mindset we got to have, especially if you have a little energy to give for Yahweh Shem Shai. It's the thought that counts to Yahweh Shem Shai. It's the effort, right? Because we have to be a doer. And a doer can be a doer if he's not trying to be a doer, okay? So again, let thy garment be always white. You know, always clean yourself, right? Let me get that in Ephesians 4. Lord, whether this is the one I really want, though. Is this the one I really want? Verse 23, it says, be ye renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that ye put on the new man, which after the Most High is created in righteousness and true holiness. Now, I want the one where it says, let me see. It's a one where you being renewed day by day. Wait, I think I know which one it is. I think it is 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, in verse 16. It says, for which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. How can we renew the inward man day by day? The spirit, right, what dwells within us, right? So those who endure shall stay undefiled and overcome and shall be clothed in white, symbolizing eternal life, purity in Yahweh's kingdom, right? Because when we look at 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, right, those that endure to the end and those that are, fit to be worthy, which is the elect, right, they're going to be translated and be changed in the twinkling of an eye into incorruptible bodies, right? 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, they're going to put on that heavenly tabernacle. Woo! Okay? So let's get this other point in verse 5. Right here where it says, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life. Right? So this shows eternal security for the faith, or the faithful, what I mean, those who overcome sin and endure to the end. Right? Because the same shall be saved who endure to the end. Let's go to Exodus, the Old Testament. Let's get to the law. Exodus 32, verse 32 to 33. It says, yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written. And Yahweh said unto Moses, whosoever have sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Right? So whosoever have sinned against Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, that's who the Heavenly Father is going to blot out of his book. Right? Even though we all sin, right? But it's really towards the 2/3 because it's already prophesied. Right? So let's get Philippians, the 4th chapter, in verse 3. It says, I entreat thee also, true yoke fellow, help those women which labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with other my fellow laborers whose name are in the book of life. Right? Because if you truly a laborer in this truth, a labor is being continuous in this mission of Yahweh Shem Shai. Because truly, when you really think about it, this is a mission. The elect is on a mission, right? We're trying to please Yahweh Shem Shai so that we could get translated like Enoch, Elijah, Yahweh Shai. This is Revelations, the 20th chapter, verse 12 and verse 15. And this is what it reads. It says, "And I saw the dead and small and great stand before the Most High, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works." We know Revelations 22, right? Yahweh Shai is coming speedily. He's coming quickly, and he's going to give everyone their reward, right? Good or bad, right? Because it's still a reward. Verse 15, "And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire," right? That destruction that's going to be in America. Starting with you Israelites, 1 Peter 4:17. I'm going to actually get that. What was I thinking of? Salaki. Oh, yeah. Verse 11, it says, "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still." This is Revelations 22:11. "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according to his work shall be." Right? So when we go to 1 Peter 4:17, for the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of the Most High. So those that's claiming this truth, right? Because the house of the Most High is this truth. So whoever is claiming it and faking, judgment is happening to you first. You're a part of the lake of fire. Y'all the elites of the 2/3. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of the Most High? Those is Jake that's of the world, right? That don't obey the gospel, that don't even give a damn. It says that if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinners appear, right? So you righteous, you're going to get scarcely saved. And those is the ones that he's not going to blot out of the book of life, because they're going to be tried and tested. They're a little chastised. Wisdom of Solomon, the 3rd chapter. Okay? So stay in the spirit, remain faithful, and your name will stay in the book of life. Right? So let me just close it out with verse 6 and just say, I think one more verse I got. Revelations 3, verse 6, it says, "And he that have an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches." So Lord willing, you heard this. This is to the church of Sardis, but we're in today now. So let's take what we can learn from what is said in Revelations 3, 1-6 about Sardis. And this is really dealing with Israelites. And now we can apply it to ourselves, because that was in the end time. The end time is right here, right now. Right? So strive to be those that will not be blotted out of the book of life. Right? You want to be one of those that overcome the world. And that means be diligent. Study the ant. Always work. Right? So let's just get this. We already brought it out. Romans 13, 11, and 12. It is that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep. For now is our salvation there that we believe. The night is far spent and the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. Okay? So wake up. Now that we hear this, let's wake up. Because what is church? Church means assembly of Israelites. Let's see if this is the one. Yep.
Strong's G, 1577. Ecclesia. Ecclesia.
Ecclesia. Now, you can take the time and read all the biblical usage. You see, I went to it. But the main point of, because it said churches, these churches are the symbol of Israelites, right? Because for good and bad, this is directed towards Israelites, right? When Paul was speaking to the Gentiles, it was towards Israelites, okay? So even in today, just because Jake don't know, this is towards Israelites, okay? This video, those that watch, this is church. This is a video. This is church. When brothers go out to camp, that's a church, assembly of Israelites. I'm calling the so-called Black, Latino, Hispanic, and Native Americans who go by those nationalities in America. But those that can bear witness with the Black, Latino, Native Americans, which the blacks that I'm speaking of is the African Americans, the Haitians, and the Jamaicans. And, your roots stem from them, especially when it goes to prophecy, the slave trade, right? How low he is, the curses in Deuteronomy 28. This lesson is for you. This is a calling for you. We try to bid you to the marriage, right, of the coming of Yahweh Shai. So, Yahweh Shai message to Sardis is for all Israel today, especially those in the truth who may look alive outwardly, but whose fire has grown cold. This is a call for repentance, to spiritual watchfulness, and to revive the faith before judgment comes unexpectedly. Acts 3:19, right? Repent and be converted, okay? And when you read about the church of Laodiceea, Lord willing, or Laodicea, Lord willing, I said it correctly. If I said it wrong, Salaki. But in Revelations 3, that church, it's a point we're going to get into, if I could get to that lesson, that the Lord said, either you cold or hot, but people want to be lukewarm. He's going to spew you out. When you read it, I think it's in the Amplified, it says he'll vomit you out. And that's you just being removed out of this truth, right? In Hebrews 6, right, 4-6, it's impossible for you to come back. If you were once enlightened, it's impossible for you to come back. So this is why now that we come in this truth, you want to make this your priority. And it's not just for you. This is for me too. I have to always make it a priority. Since I'm in this, what is for me outside this truth? Nothing. Right? So I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to the one true power who always makes it possible, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, Brakata Yahweh, Brakata Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well through the Spirit. And a mighty shalom to the hopeful elect of the same Spirit. Lord willing that they all continue in sound doctrine. Shalom to the Akwath, the sisters of this faith. Lord willing you continue to pursue your lot. And Lord willing Yahweh Shema Shai has mercy on the other brothers and sisters that's not in the faith. Shalom, shalom, abba, abba.